One of the reasons I think Christianity is true is because so many people hate it.
Yeah.
And Jesus is really the great divider.
Been.
Yeah. And like, why would you be mad at Jesus or Christianity when it's like a nonviolent religion that teaches people to love each other? If you're mad at that, it says something about how real it is, I think.
I agree. Both Billy Graham and Fulton Sheen, arguably the two greatest evangelists of the 20th century, said the same thing, which was the objection to God is rarely truly intellectual. It's a moral objection.
Totally.
So the moral demand of God, it becomes too great. See, Jesus, if he's one spiritual figure among many, he's a great teacher, like the Buddha, he's like Muhammad, he's like Confucius. Well, then I can kind of handle him. I can put him in a corner and say, okay, that's interesting. I'll abide by some of that. And I also like what the Sufi mystics say. And I also like what Moses says here. But see, Jesus, as C.S. Lewis saw so perfectly, is qualitatively different than that. And that's why he's a problem. Because if he is who he says he is, not just one teacher that I can listen to, but he's God from God, light from light, true God from true God, begot, not made, consubstantial with the Father. As we say every week in the Creed.
Through him, all things were made.
Yeah. If that's who he is, well, the game's over.
But why does it make people mad? One of the late life revelations in my life has been that these great spasms of violence, these revolutions that we study, French Revolution, Spanish Civil War, Bolshevik Revolution, 1917, huge parts of World War II, were anti-Christian.
Absolutely.
Like, the point was to murder Christians.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But it's not recorded that way.
Yeah, but that's true. Yeah, but see, Jesus, he's a problem because of who he says he is, but also we're sinners. And so sinners don't want to get out of their sinful patterns. We're way too comfortable. It's like the Israelites that want to go back to Egypt, right? They're on their way to liberation, but oh boy, did we love the flesh pots of Egypt. At least we had cucumbers and all. Right?
It's my favorite part.
Right. But that's the story of every sinner. Every sin is a type of addiction. You're addicted to, that's the principal. And so as I'm trying to move toward conversion, I'm moving across the painful desert, right, on the way to the promised land. I'm always hankering for Egypt. And so Jesus is a constant reproach, a constant challenge, a constant no. So of course I'm gonna resist him. Look at, the very fact, I think this is very interesting. Muhammad dies in his bed full of years. The Buddha dies in his bed full of years, surrounded by his disciples. Confucius, the same thing. Moses dies at the age of 120 or something, And then there's Jesus, who dies 30 years old, naked, pinned to a desperate instrument of torture. His disciples having abandoned him, his enemies mocking him. That's how he dies. Now, what does it tell you? It tells you there's something about him.
Well, who would write that? By the way, if I'm trying to create a new religion,
no way you'd write.
He is not the hero I'm creating at all.
No, but it's a sign. He's a sign of contradiction. He's the one that's the way the world is going to react to him. Now, what's the good news? The good news is, having endured all of that, he returns. And I always think of this, if we were, Hollywood's telling the story, you never heard the Jesus story, but here's this guy with this horrible thing, and these people betrayed him and denied him, and they crucified him, and now he's back. He'd be back with a machine gun. I'm back for vengeance. He's back with shalom, a word of peace. And the way I put it, Christianity is this: we killed God, and God returned in forgiving love. And that's why, as Paul said, right, I'm certain neither death nor life, nor angels, nor principalities, nor height, nor depth, nor anything else could ever separate us from the love of God. How does Paul know that? Because we killed God, and God returned in forgiving love. That's salvation. That's the word of grace, if you want. That's the good news. That's what they went careering around the world to their deaths proclaiming, was that. Paul, I preach one thing, Christ and him crucified. Because that's the message, is we killed him, God raised him up, and he returned in forgiving love. That's the good news.